things really kicked off today, allow me to introduce you to you a senator from the great state of Florida who's coming here today running for President of the United States of America, Senator Marco Rubio.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. Tuesday's an important day, and thank you for greeting me despite the fact that I am indeed a Florida Gator. No boo? All right, good. We all want to beat Auburn. That's good, right? Or there's Auburn here? I learned a long time ago not to get involved in that fight. People ask me to pick sides. You don't pick sides. But I appreciate it very much. Thank you for greeting me here today, and I'm so honored to be with all of you and on this important election for this nation's future. Here's what I want to leave you with. I'm really interested in answering the questions, but I want to leave you with a few things before we start. First of all, I know this country is facing some real difficulties right now. It really is. And not so much just nationally, but in our lives. Right? People are working harder than they've ever worked before. They feel like they're running in place. You have a lot of young people here, some of whom may have borrowed money to go to school. So you're borrowing all this money to get a degree, and then you graduate and you go into the economy. There's no jobs there for you. You open up the newspaper, you turn on the news, or you go online, and every day there's a report of some horrible thing happening in the world. Some enemy of America is winning somewhere, and we feel like we're falling behind. So times seem tough. And yet I want you to believe that if we do what needs to be done, in this election, now, we have to do it now, but if we do what needs to be done, there is no reason why this country cannot be better than it's ever been in its history. I believe the 21st century is made for America. The 21st century is about global competition. We are the most productive workers in the world. We are the most creative and innovative people on this planet, and no one can compete with America if we are given a chance to compete. But we're being held back by our government. We're being held back by our leaders, and let me be frank, we're being held back by leaders and by government in both political parties. You don't run up a $20 trillion debt, $20 trillion of debt. You don't run up that kind of debt without bipartisan cooperation. I would say that many of our leaders in Washington today are part of the most selfish generation in American history. These are people that know that we are headed for a debt crisis and have done nothing about it. Because their argument and their attitude is, let's win the next election and then we'll worry about it. But they say that every 2 years, and so nothing happens. And the result is this extraordinary frustration about the direction of our country. And that's what we're facing now. What we cannot allow is for that frustration to be used against us or manipulated. Because at stake is not just the identity of America. At stake is the identity of the conservative movement itself. The conservative movement is based on the principles that made America the greatest nation in the history of mankind. First of all, we were founded on an incredibly powerful spiritual principle. Most nations are founded on a political idea. We were founded on a spiritual principle. That our rights, your rights and my rights and the rights of all mankind do not come from our leaders. Our rights do not come from the government. Our rights do not come from our laws. Our rights do not even come from the Constitution. Our rights come from God. Our rights come from our Creator. Our founding document recognized that. The Declaration of Independence said that our rights come from our Creator, the rights to life and liberty and to pursue happiness. But those weren't just words on a piece of paper. For 200 years, America and its leaders have gone out and lived by that principle. That's why we embrace limited government. Because we understood that government's job was simply to protect our rights, not to grant them and not to run our lives. That's why we embraced free enterprise. It is the only economic model in the history of the world. Free enterprise is the only economic model where everyone is judged based on your merit and your hard work. In countries where the government dominates the economy, the same people keep winning. Go to any country in the world, a lot of them claim to be capitalists. They're not. They're corporatists. Which means that the same companies and the same families, they keep winning because they have influence over the government, and everyone else gets left behind. I love free enterprise because it's the only economic model in the world where you can make poor people richer, and you don't have to make rich people poorer, where you can lift everybody up and leave no one behind. And I love free enterprise as the son of a bartender and a maid. My parents didn't leave me any money. My parents never made a lot of money. My dad was a bartender working banquets at a hotel. My mother cleaned the rooms. But my parents were successful people. They had those jobs because someone had access to money, and they risked that money to open up those hotels that my parents worked in. My parents had a job because we had an economy where other Americans made enough money, so after they paid their taxes and their bills, they went to Las Vegas for 3 days, or they went to Miami Beach for a week. Free enterprise works, limited government works, and strong national defense. That is the job of the federal government, to keep us safe. And today, that's not happening because we have a weak and indecisive commander-in-chief who's gutting our military. Ronald Reagan, 36 years ago, defined what it meant to be a conservative at the end of the 20th century. And it is not a coincidence that today, if you look across America, you have a bunch of leaders in their 40s and early 50s in the Republican Party who are conservatives. The Democrats have none. Who are the young up-and-coming Democrats? They don't have any. All the young and up-and-coming leaders in American politics are Republicans and conservatives. Bobby Jindal, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, myself, Scott Walker, Nikki Haley, Susana Martinez. The list goes on and on. If I'm leaving somebody out, it's not on purpose. My point is, why is it that all these people of the same age and generation are all conservatives? Who is the equivalent to us in our 40s and early 50s on the Democratic side? Nobody. They have no one. Both of their candidates are close to 70 years of age, and they have no one else to run because we grew up in the era of Reagan. Because we grew up in an era where Ronald Reagan defined what it meant to be a conservative. Now the time has come for us to define it once again for a new generation of Americans, especially now after 8 years of Barack Obama. And we get this election wrong, we will lose the conservative movement, and we will lose the future of this country. And that's why 2016 is so critical. I watched the other night as another candidate on the stage of that debate spent 30 seconds to 45 seconds defending Planned Parenthood, using the exact same words. Donald used the exact same words that Hillary Clinton does to defend Planned Parenthood. I've also watched them use the same talking points, for example, about the issue of health care, that somehow if the government doesn't run our health care system, people are going to die in the streets. I watched them also say that when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians, he doesn't want to take a side. I'm going to take a side. I'm going to be on Israel's side 100% every single day. So, if you've watched me campaign this year, you've noticed that I very rarely try to attack other Republicans because I don't like it. I think the Democrats love when we do that. I think they cheer when we do that. But we've come to a point now where we have no choice but to talk about some of these differences. Because I'm telling you, what's at stake is the party of Lincoln and Reagan. What's at stake is the conservative movement. And I am not going to stand by and watch the conservative movement be taken over by someone who is not a conservative, by someone who's conning us. I've used strong words. And my parents didn't raise me that way, but I've used strong words because I feel that passionately about it. Okay? I believe that there are Americans today that are being fooled by this guy. I really do. What do I mean by that? People, when someone is upset, when someone is uncertain about the future, when someone is insecure about what's going on, you become vulnerable to people that come to you and say, give me the power, and I'm going to turn your life around. That's how con jobs work, okay? That is how con jobs work. That's how Trump University happened. He went to people who were looking for a better life, and he convinced them, sign up for this program, and I'm going to make you as successful as I am in real estate. And people borrowed $36,000 to take these courses, and they got nothing in return. That's just one small-scale example. And the result is they got nothing but a picture with a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump. Now imagine that happening to a country. Imagine people now being told in America, look, come on board, vote for me because I'm a strong leader. I'm going to take on illegal immigration. Well, how are you going to take on illegal immigration when you're hiring illegal immigrants to build your signature tower? I'm going to protect the American worker, he says. He's going to protect the American worker. I live in Florida where he has a hotel and he's hiring people from Romania because he says he can't find Americans to do that job. I can. Those are the jobs my parents did. My mom was a maid. My dad worked at a hotel. 300 people in Florida applied for those jobs. He says he's going to bring jobs back from China and Mexico. He's making ties and hats in China and Mexico. Why do I say all this to you? Because it proves that this is a con job. And we cannot allow the conservative movement to be taken away from us. Because if it is, there's nothing left to stand up to the Democrats. There's nothing left to stand up to the liberals. This is not just about winning or losing an election, guys. It isn't. Most of these elections, we're all pretty much the same for the most part on our issues. Look, he's not here today, and I've had my differences with Ted Cruz on defense stuff, but Ted and I are friends. Ted and I get along. We know each other personally. In the end, I understand that while we may not agree on everything, I've never said he's not a conservative, and I don't think he's ever said that about me. But we cannot lose this election to nomination to someone that the Democrats will rip apart. We cannot. And the press knows this. And the press knows this. And the press knows this. That's why they give him a pass. When is the last time you ever saw the press cheering for a Republican to win the nomination? It doesn't happen. You know why they're doing it? Because they can't wait till he gets the nomination, and then they are going to shred him to pieces so they can hand it to Hillary Clinton or, God forbid, to Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist. And we can't lose this. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. When you say this about someone in American politics, they always deny it. I'm not a socialist. You're smearing me. He says it on his commercials. He's a socialist. I said a few weeks ago he should be president of Sweden. Sweden got mad. So I said, okay. He should be president of Norway, and the Norwegians got all fired up about it. So is anybody here from Luxembourg? Because I can tell you that if you want to be a socialist country, you should move to a socialist country. We want to be the United States of America. And Hillary Clinton is unqualified to be president of the United States. Unqualified. She put classified information on her private server because she thinks she's above the law. Her husband thought he was above the law. No one is above the law. And by the way, she's disqualified from being commander-in-chief. Because on the 11th of September of 2012, 4 Americans died in Benghazi. And she told their families that they died because of a movie. And she knew they died because of a terrorist attack. Anybody who lies to the family of Americans who have lost their lives serving our country can never be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. We cannot lose this election. Because losing this election doesn't just mean we lost the election. It means we'll lose our identity as a nation and as a people. I know that if I'm nominated, I'll win. The Democrats know this. They attack me more than any other Republican in this race because they know that if I'm the nominee, we win. I'll unite the Republican Party. I've already proven just in the last week that I can bring people together from different parts of this party. I'll grow it. We are going to take the conservative movement, not by watering it down. We're going to take it and grow it by taking it to people who don't vote for us now. There are millions of people in this country that don't vote for us now. They don't vote for us now because they've been told we don't care about people like them. It's the Democrats that are hurting people that are living paycheck to paycheck. It's the Democrats that are hurting students who have to borrow all this money. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. I grew up paycheck to paycheck, and I had $100,000 in student loan debt. I am going to take the conservative movement to people that are living today the way I grew up and the way I have lived, and we will convince people that conservatism was right for me, conservatism is right for them, and conservatism was what is right for the United States of America. We will win and we'll turn this country around. When I'm elected president, for the first time in 8 years, you're going to have a president that follows the Constitution. That's not too much to ask. It's in the oath of office. I'll repeal all of Obamacare's executive orders on my first day in office. You'll have a president that defends the First Amendment right to live out the teachings of your faith in every aspect of your life. You'll have a president that defends your Second Amendment right to defend yourself and your family. You'll have a president that believes in the 10th Amendment and will defend it, which means states should be the primary governments in our country, not Washington, D.C. If you want to change the Constitution, it's not through the court system. Article 5 does that. And there are 2 changes I'd like to see in the Constitution, just 2. Number 1, I want us to have a balanced budget amendment so we can't spend money we don't have. And number 2, I want term limits for Congress and term limits for judges. Well, maybe a line item veto too, so we can go after some of this crazy spending stuff as well. Number 2, we're going to re-embrace free enterprise. That's why we're going to fix our tax code, and I have a serious plan to do that. All these things I'm about to say, go online and see it on my website, marcorubio.com. We're going to fix our tax code. We have a plan to roll back regulations. We're going to fully utilize our energy resources. We're going to deal with the national debt while saving Social Security and Medicare. And when I'm president, we will, in fact, once and for all, repeal and replace Obamacare, which is destroying jobs and hurting our economy. And we're going to also, by the way, do the one thing the federal government is supposed to do, and that's keep you safe. The world is a dangerous place. North Korea is governed by a lunatic who happens to have nuclear weapons. The Chinese government, the Chinese communist government, is building up their military and taking over the South China Sea. They steal our inventions, they hack our computers. Vladimir Putin is sowing instability in the Middle East and in Europe. Iran's going to get $100 billion because of Barack Obama's deal with them. And radical Islamic jihadists are spreading all over the world. ISIS now has affiliates in over a dozen countries. And this president guts our military in the face of all this. We're soon going to have the smallest army since the end of World War II, and the smallest Navy in 100 years, and the smallest Air Force in our history. When I'm president of the United States, we are going to undertake a Reagan-style rebuilding of the United States military. When I'm president, we're going to have a real war on terror. What we have now is a fake war. This is not a real war on terror. A real war on terror is your intelligence agencies find them, and your military destroys them, and if you capture them alive, they don't get the right to remain silent. They don't get a court hearing in Manhattan. They don't come to a federal prison in Alabama. They go to Guantanamo. When I'm president, we're going to be allies to our allies again. In the Middle East, there's only one pro-American free enterprise democracy, the state of Israel. When I'm president, we are taking sides. Donald may not want to take sides. I'm taking sides. I'm with Israel, and everyone will know it because on my first day in office, I will cancel Barack Obama's deal with Iran on my first day there. We're going to take care of our veterans again. By the way, if you are a veteran, would you raise your hand? We want to thank you for your service to our country. We're honored by you. Thank you. We do not take care of our veterans in America anymore. My brother's a veteran. He was in the Army. He was a Green Beret in the 7th Special Forces. He jumped out of a plane one day on a practice mission, knocked out his teeth. So every few years now he has to go to the VA to get his dental claim, and they give him such a hard time all the time. Oh, how do we know this happened in the Army? He says, well, it's the only time I jumped out of a plane. It's crazy. The other day, USA Today had this article, the top headline, calls to the VA suicide hotline went to voicemail. Went to voicemail. And no one gets fired over this stuff. Look, there are good people at the VA, but there are people that aren't doing their jobs. And nothing happens to them. When I'm president, you work at the VA and you're not doing a good job, you'll be fired from your job at the VA if you're not doing a good job. When I'm president, our veterans will be able to take their benefits from the VA to any hospital or any doctor that they want to go see. By the way, on the subject of veterans, a lot of our veterans, when they come back home, they don't stop serving us. Go to any fire station or any police department, you're going to run into a bunch of veterans. And I'm so tired of all these articles about how bad the police are. I thank God, and I want you all to thank our police officers and our firefighters for what they do for America. So I'm going to wrap it up. I want to get to the questions. I just want to close by saying we have a lot of work to do. This is an incredibly consequential election. This election is not just a choice between political parties. It is not a time to make a point. It is an election to make a difference. This is an election. If we get it wrong, it may be too late to get it right. We could lose the essence of what makes us special. This election is a referendum. What's on the ballot this year in Alabama on Tuesday, beyond what's on the ballot is, what kind of country will America be in the 21st century? I can tell you what we've been for 200 years, special, unique. I know this firsthand because my parents knew what life was like in another country. When they came here in 1956, they barely spoke English. The first words my father learned in English were, "I'm looking for a job." And he worked well into his 70s, and so did my mom. When they came here, they had nothing, no money, no connections, no influence, barely an education. My dad stopped going to school when he was 9 because his mom died, and if he wanted to eat, he had to go work, and he would work for the next 70 years of his life. My parents were never rich or famous people, but they were successful people. Because working as a bartender, less than 10 years after they came here with nothing, my parents bought their first home. After years of hard work, my parents were able to retire with dignity and with security. But you know what really made my parents successful? They lived to see all 4 of their children have a life better than their own. Now, I tell you that story because it's not just my story. That's our story. I don't know your personal stories. I've never met most of you in person, and the ones I have, I've barely been able to talk to. But I know enough about you because you're Americans. And here's what I know about America. In America, we are all just a generation or 2 removed from someone who did for you what my parents did for me. Maybe they came from another country, maybe they didn't. But every single one of us had grandparents who made incredible sacrifices for our parents. Or we have parents that made those sacrifices for us. You remember the 2 jobs your father had to work? You remember the things your mother gave up? Or maybe that's what you're doing now for your kids. That's what makes us different. Every country in the world has rich people. We celebrate financial success in America. We don't demonize it like Barack Obama does. We don't look down on it. But every country has rich people. What makes us truly special is that we are the one place on earth where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. And we're about to lose that. We're about to lose that because this country today is being run by people that on purpose are trying to make us more like the rest of the world. And because I have benefited from the American dream, because America is not just the country I was born in, but the country that changed my life, I am not going to stand back and watch as this country is fundamentally changed in a way that will rob us of what makes us special. And the only way we can keep the American dream alive is if the principles of conservatism return to the White House and to Washington, D.C., and that begins with us first. That won't happen if we don't nominate someone who is truly a conservative, someone who truly believes in limited government and in free enterprise and in a strong national defense. Not someone who's preying on the people's fears to carry out the ultimate con job and finally get a hold of one more trophy for their trophy case, the presidency of the United States. This is incredibly consequential. That's why I feel so passionately about it. That's why I will stay in this campaign across 50 states and every territory. If I have to, I will get in my pickup truck and drive all across America. Because if we get this election wrong, then we are going to have to explain to my children's generation why I inherited and you inherited the greatest country in the world and they did not. Why we got to grow up in the most exceptional society in all of human history, and they did not. That is a conversation I refuse to have. I will not stand back and watch this country robbed of all the things that make it special. And I ask you to join us in this endeavor. Because together, if we do what needs to be done, if we do what needs to be done in 2016, I believe this. I believe that the American dream won't just be saved, but we can make it reach more people than it's ever reached before. I believe that our children and our grandchildren and the young people here today are going to grow up to be the freest and most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. I believe the 21st century can be better than the 20th century. I believe it can be a new American century. And I know that with God's help, if we do what needs to be done, then we will be able to leave for the next generation what previous generations left for us. The single greatest nation in the history of all mankind. So I'm here today to ask you to vote for me on Tuesday. If you haven't voted already, because if you voted already, you can't vote twice. That's only legal in Illinois. But in Chicago in particular. I'm asking you to vote for me. I'm asking you to go on our website and have other people join our effort. It's that important. We have a chance to do something special together in this generation. Now is our time. We can do it together. And so I ask you for your help. And God bless you, and thank you.